Who is this game actually for? So believe it or not, Conker's Bad Fur Day actually started as a platformer about a squirrel collecting nuts in a Disney Bambi's Forest kind of setting. This was peak N64, Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie era. And so originally Conker fit into that kind of mold. It was bright, it was cheery, it was inoffensive. It was also called stunningly unimaginative and infuriatingly happy. Nintendo felt it was too much like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. They didn't need another game that was just like that. So Rare pivoted. So they pictured a game that was more a day in the life, where Conker goes around trying to help people but ends up making things worse. And then they steered even further away from games like Mario by wanting to make the game edgy and violent. And so development went off in a completely different direction to a more adult comedy game. And what the team found was that leaning into the comedy made the levels come together faster and easier. So they steered hard into the comedy. Comedy first, gameplay second. Which, while it made things better for the people making the game, for me it just made things more frustrating. Conker's biggest problem is that the game is fun, just not funny. But we'll get back to that. So we ended up with a game where Conker gets drunk, passes out, and has to figure out how to get home from whatever random location he woke up in. And along the way, there's a story about a mad scientist who wants to use a squirrel as a table leg, a crap monster you need to feed corn, and a bee that's trying to have sex with a flower. Basically, sketch comedy dressed up as a platformer. But for all of its adult ambition, the game uses the word poop a lot. There are moments that are clearly aimed at college-age players next to jokes written by 10-year-olds. So who is this game for? I'm guessing the developers who were just trying to amuse themselves while they were making it. But I'll give the devs credit for this. This is one of the most immersive games I've ever played, because you really get to experience what it's like to be drunk by having the worst controls I've ever experienced in a video game. It's been years since I picked up an N64 controller, so I don't remember if the joystick was always this bad and I was just better at handling it when I was a kid, or if I just suck now. You constantly need to move the camera just to see where you're going, and half the time it gets stuck on the geometry. There are shooting sections with a slingshot, and for some reason the developers decided a crosshair was a luxury that we couldn't afford. Movement is so sensitive, sometimes I would fall off a straight bridge just trying to walk across it. And in the beginning, there's this platforming tutorial section that I got stuck on for like 20 minutes. Right before you get to the section, the game tells you you can hold down crouch to do a high jump, which gives you the impression that's what you're supposed to do to get through this platform section. But no, doing the high jump, it gives you more height, but it doesn't give you any more length. And in platforming, you need distance. So you're just supposed to do normal jumps across these platforms, not crouch jumps. And the game has a hover that lets you go a little bit farther, but it only lasts a couple seconds. And then there's the geometry. I swear the hitboxes on these platforms have to be circles, because I would land close to the edge and then just slide off. And speaking of sliding, for some reason, the developers decided that when Conker's moving forward, instead of just stopping when you stop, he does a little slide, causing me to slide off a platform whenever I was trying to get up close to the edge, which you needed to be to make the jump to the next platform. And dealing with the controls aren't the only difficult part about this game. The puzzles are an entirely different problem, because sometimes it's not clear what you're even trying to do. In the poo level, you're supposed to feed corn to the poo monster, and there are these holes where a hand comes out and kind of slams the ground, and there's a piece of corn kind of walking around. So I tried to get the corn to walk over near the hand when the hand came out, and that's not what you're supposed to do. I tried to knock the corn out and pick it up and carry it over to where the hand slams down, and that's not what you're supposed to do. Also, once you pick the corn up, you can't throw it, so that's not what you're supposed to do. And there's a contextual button press near the hole that I walked onto, and I walked onto carrying the corn, and it didn't actually let me press the button either time. I actually had to go online to find out how I was supposed to solve this puzzle. And this is a game that spent several minutes just explaining to me what a contextual button press is. So it over-explains the easy stuff and under-explains the stuff I actually need to know. The puzzles aren't hard in a satisfying way, they're hard in a I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing kind of way. But even with the camera problems and the control problems and the puzzle issues, at least the game doesn't get boring. The levels, they're imaginative, and there's a wide variety of them, from platforming to puzzles to first-person shooters. There's plenty of movie references and fourth wall breaks that work a lot better than any of the jokes. The jokes are funny for a while in the beginning, but the game kind of tells the same joke, and after 8 hours it gets kind of old. There's a part near the beginning where you overfeed a rat cheese and it explodes and you see its bloody ribcage lying on the floor. But throughout the game, I saw that same bloody ribcage lying on the floor several times. And none of the curse words get censored except for the 2 big ones, but that's not edgy or funny anymore. Again, the game is fun. It just isn't funny. And since the developers were focusing on the funny a lot more than the gameplay, I think they did the game a disservice. It works better as a game than it works as a comedy. And that gap between what it was trying to be and what it actually ended up as is one of the more interesting things about this game. Because there were actually things in this game and the original that were too controversial for Nintendo. Apparently, there was a KKK section. There were some jokes at Pokemon's expense, and that all got cut. Nintendo Power never ran a single article about the game. KB stores refused to stock it, and it created a lot of tension between what Rare was trying to make and what Nintendo was willing to put their label on. Even their marketing was weird. They advertised in bars and adult magazines. They had urinal mats with the website on it. They were part of the Playboy Campus Tour, 20 colleges hosted by Miss March 2001, and they had contests where the awards were a green N64 and the highest score got a trip to the Playboy Mansion. Their campaign was aimed directly at college guys and frat bros, and Nintendo pretended the game didn't exist. And so what we ended up with was the highest selling M-rated game in its first month, with over 55,000 copies sold and a commercial failure. The niche marketing and the fact that the N64 was near the end of its life cycle anyway really didn't help. Neither did the fact that Nintendo of Europe refused to even publish the game. THQ had to take care of it. But all that means it's doing really well in the collector's market, with new versions selling for $500, which is good as it's gonna get because its sequel already got canceled. Rare was planning a sequel called Conker's Other Bad Day. It was about how King Conker blows all the kingdom's money on beer parties and hookers, gets thrown in prison, faces execution, and has to escape the castle. And then Microsoft bought Rare in 2002 and canceled the project. Though if you've never played Conker's Bad Fur Day and you're thinking about giving it a shot, I would go for the remake, Live and Reloaded, that was released in 2005 for the Xbox. Apparently it makes a lot of improvements on the controls and the gameplay. It censors more of the swear words, but the cursing wasn't making the game any better anyway. So who is this game for? Not a lot of people bought it, but the people who did play it really loved it. I really loved it, except for the few minor frustrations. But it's weird. I felt some parts were too adult for kids and others were too kiddie for adults. The comedy's not good enough for the people who love comedy, and too much gameplay was sacrificed for the people who love gameplay. The whole development philosophy of comedy first and gameplay second made it completely like anything else on the platform. There is no other N64 game that plays like this, feels like this, or has this particular flavor of chaos. It's fun. It's just not as funny as it thinks it is. But it's also a game where a mad scientist tries to kidnap a squirrel to fix a wobbly table leg. Maybe that's enough. See you next time.